Welcome everybody. Welcome everyone into the room. Welcome to this event, Co-Creating Digital Solutions for Persons with Disabilities, Policies and Strategies for Tomorrow's Digital Challenges. And we have some people in the room here at the UN headquarters in New York, and this event is taking place alongside the Conference of State Parties to the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. And my name is Maria Montefusco, and I work at the Swedish Agency for Participation, which is one of the national governmental agencies that cooperate alongside the organizations that represent persons with disabilities in the Nordic cooperation. And I know that we have people online also following this event, so welcome to you too. Preparing for moderating this session, I've been inspired by the speaker guidance on accessibility for people with intellectual disabilities, written by Inclusion International and Down Syndrome International. And this means that we will do our best to use simple explanations and explain difficult words. In this event, as I said, we have live streaming and we also have closed captions. Unfortunately, we couldn't get hold of sign language interpreters to this event, and we apologize for that. There might be some time for asking questions, but we will do that by the end, and hope there will be some time for that. This event is hosted by Iceland and the Nordic Council of Ministers, and Iceland is holding the presidency for the Nordic cooperation this year. Now I would like to give the word to Mr. Gudmundur Inge Gudbrandsson, who is the Minister of Social Affairs and the Labour Market in Iceland, and also this year Minister for Nordic Cooperation. Minister.
Thank you so much, Maria, and really nice to be here with you here today. We sometimes say in Iceland, because we are so few, that if we get more than 10 people to a meeting, it's a success. So I'm happy to see that there are more than 10 people here, which means that we are reaching out with this important topic that we have here. That is, like it says in the title of the conference, to co-create digital solutions for persons with disabilities, policies and strategies for tomorrow's digital challenges. Now, one of the goals of the Nordic Council of Ministers is to make the Nordic region the most integrated and most sustainable region in the world by 2030. A socially sustainable Nordic region would then be one where universal design, accessibility, and inclusion are central perspectives. And we do believe that all individuals, regardless of their abilities, should have equal access to opportunities, services, and technologies. These are indeed nice words that all of us want to see become true for our societies. But then how come that we still repeat the same mistakes over and over again? That is my question. How come that we don't think enough about accessibility and inclusion when it comes to major developments? Developments such as digitalization, a topic we are going to discuss here today, or planning for the impacts of climate change or changes on the labor market. But perhaps more importantly, how are we going to support the change agents of today and tomorrow? And how are we going to become these agents? Because we cannot wait for too long. Accessibility is not just a matter of convenience. Our ability to live independently and fully partake in society depends on our access to resources and services, including the services and information that are now only available through digital platforms. Governments across the globe are therefore searching for new ways to develop solutions that ensure that no one is left behind. To that end, the Icelandic government has, during its chairmanship of the Nordic Council of Ministers this year, put electronic access for disabled people on the agenda within the Nordic cooperation. Earlier this year, the Nordic Ministers of Social Affairs and Health signed a declaration on ensuring quality of life and inclusion of all our citizens within the area of digital solutions. This entails calling all the relevant agents to the table, including people with disabilities, where we must be innovative and creative in finding solutions to existing problems and ensuring that new technological solutions are inclusive from the start. Navav Kabara, the representative of the NGOs at the opening session this morning, said something along these lines. We have been shouting these messages for over a decade now, referring to technical solutions. And I say, shouting is tiring, especially if we need to do it for too long. And I ask, for how much longer will we need to shout? The answer I do not have, unfortunately. Iceland is a small nation, and we can make changes happen very fast. That is the case when rapid technological change takes place and previous practices are quickly outdated. And that, in conjunction with lack of consideration to marginalized groups such as people with disabilities, often ends in that people are left behind. And this is the case when it comes to digital development. And I share the frustration of people when it comes to this particular case, and I have placed an emphasis on finding ways to remove those digital barriers for people with disabilities. Furthermore, I really hope that our solutions, which are in the making, will also help other countries preventing or overcoming similar barriers. And the aim of this side event is to share knowledge and ideas, that is, to co-create solutions. And I quote Mr. Gerald Quinn, the special reporter on the rights of persons with disabilities, from this morning's opening session. These quotes are not exactly correct, maybe, But he said, we have been catching up since the internet came about. It has to be different with artificial intelligence. And I say the same should apply to digital development. Now, Iceland has already made a significant advancement with the creation of a personal advocate electronic database that we will hear more about later in this afternoon. So through a digital mailbox, which serves as the public sector's communication gateway to Icelandic residents, personal advocates for individuals with disabilities can now represent their clients electronically. In addition to being an important step in reducing a barrier that affects people with disabilities, I think this will also benefit the greater population as well. And having said all of this, we still have miles to go. In conclusion, both Iceland and the Nordic region are committed to making our vision of the most integrated region in the world a reality by 2030. Central to this vision is sustainable social development, which cannot be achieved without inclusion, accessibility, and universal design. And I really hope that this side event will put digital solutions for persons with disabilities higher on the political agenda. So together, let us work towards a future where no one is left behind and where every one of us can contribute and flourish. And I will end by telling myself that I've spoken for a minute too long by doing this I have always wanted to do. That felt good.
Thank you, Minister Gudbrandsson. Maybe it's the hammer of Thor, according to the saga. Thank you so much. And it's now my pleasure to give the floor to Ms. Gry Haugsbakken, State Secretary of the Ministry of Culture and Equality in Norway. And your topic is policies and strategies for inclusive digital solutions.
Thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here and to see all of you at this very important event. Already in 2016, the UN declared that access to internet is a fundamental human right and therefore digital freedom as a central part of our everyday life. The digital infrastructure in the Nordic countries is good. However, that doesn't mean that everyone has the same opportunity to participate. In Norway, the use of information and communication technology, ICT, in the population is high. But there are still many people who don't take part in the digital sphere. 14% of Norwegians, age 16 and over, approximately 600,000 people, are defined as non-digital or with weak digital skills. This is a large group. Many of them are persons with disabilities, whereas many as 1 in 10 seldom is using the internet. That is a problem in a time when mobile phones and laptops are dominant and we can do almost everything online. Digital exclusion has a high cost. It is difficult to perform tasks on websites without the necessary digital competence, and that leads to a risk of losing out on an equal access to service and products provided by both public and private enterprises. Another challenge is lack of universal designs of the digital solutions. ICT solutions are complicated, and sometimes providers lack the ability to make their services universally designed. A concrete example can be found on public websites. The Authority for Universal Designs of ICT is responsible for following up regulations on universal designs of ICT solutions in Norway. They have uncovered breaches in 49 out of 51 inspections. This is 96%, and that is, of course, far too much. The government's vision is a society where everyone can participate. Accessibility is a prerequisite for equality and the ability to act independently in society, in particular for persons with disabilities. As we all know, digital solutions can be a great tool for inclusion and equal participations, if they are universally designed. Thus, the solution we create or finance must be designed according to the principles of universal design. Universal design of ICT solutions is a precondition for the right to democratic participation. Everybody has the same right to access to information. The Norwegian Equality and Anti-Discrimination Act states that both public and private organizations shall have universal designs of their main solutions for the users, including ICT solutions. According to the ICT regulation, websites, mobile applications, digital teaching aids, and vending machines aimed at the public must be universally designed. Digitalization of the public sector aims to give everyone a simpler life. A key success factor is that the service offered be universally designed, and that the public sector's plain language is in communication and interactions with users. A society with low barriers for participation and high degree of accessibility is good for everyone, regardless of functionality. We need to collaborate across countries, agencies, and sectors to create seamless services that meet the needs of the users, regardless of who provides the service. Thank you.
Thank you very much, State Secretary. And we have now heard about policy and political ambition, and the Norwegian strategy for digital inclusion is a very good example. In the Nordic cooperation, I think it holds also in an international context, and we have a lot to learn from you. So thank you for presenting sharing your experiences about that. And now we will dig a little bit deeper into and learn a little bit more about example on when policy is implemented and put into practice. And I pass the word to Gudrun Augusta Gudmundsdottir and Thor Thorarinsson. I don't know which one of you will start. It seems like it's you, Thor. And you are both political advisors to the Minister of Social Affairs and Labour in Iceland. And the topic is making policies and strategies work, experience from the real world.
The current government took the lead 2021 to enter the CRPD Convention into law in Iceland. We realized that in order to achieve this goal, we cannot do things the way we have always done. And we now use the opportunity to follow new paths and look at the challenges of the future in a new and changed way. We took the path of incorporating new trends and ideas, both in services for disabled people, but also other service systems, entrepreneurs, innovation environments, private parties, and thus looked for influence for far beyond our traditional work environment. We agreed that we need to create an innovation ecosystem where strong connections between people would be created, increasing the ability to innovate through professional development and solutions for innovation. This would mean to reward good procedures and open up the sharing of data, information, and knowledge across systems and professions. This is how we work in co-creating and design services and solutions that take into account the individual needs of those who need services. We are therefore going to do these things in a new way, where consultation and respect are in the foreground, and we are committed to making three main values the core of our work. That means constructive communication, clear goals along the way, and sincere trust between parties during the journey. Decisions are therefore not made unless the partners agree on them and are ready to follow them to the end. We intend to integrate the goals projects that we want to implement in each of the 33 articles of the agreement with the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. The goals projects can therefore be numerous and varied in scope, and around 100 and 200 projects have now been defined, which we will prioritize according to their importance until the year of 2030. It is also key that all goals are measurable and that clear criteria are set from one time to another. Stakeholders will therefore always be able to monitor the progress of the goals and seek information about the status from those responsible for the implementation. Status meetings with all the stakeholders will be held once a year, and they will also be able to obtain more information about the status of projects in special government information portal that is accessible for all. All goals actions will be assessed for cost and benefit. Along with this, a new tone will be struck in professional development, where those supporting will formulate their work plans in collaboration with users. Peer review will be introduced, behavior and traditional management structures will be changed, and decisions will be made closer to the user. Implementation of the national plan to the project began in mid-22. With the appointment of a steering group with the participation of users, government representatives, and representatives of the municipalities. Then 11 groups were formed where representatives of users were given leadership roles. What is also important to point out is that we are working on the premise that the convention will be incorporated into domestic legislation in the beginning of the year 2025. Thank you.
My name is Guðrún Ágústa, and I'm going to go on with what Thor has already talked about. Our national implementation plan has, from the beginning, been in co-creation with the Association of Municipalities in Iceland, as well as various NGOs. When we look at the proposals from these 11 working groups that Thor has already mentioned, these are the 6 main points that stand out: raising awareness, co-creation, education and training, accessibility, data collection and monitoring, and protections of rights. I think in pictures, so therefore, my slides reflect that. I see our convention journey like the evolution process from the first photograph from a long time ago. That was blurry, black and white and grainy, all the way to today's full color and high definition images. In our work towards the National Implementation Plan, we aim at 3 target groups: the general public, all those that possibly touch the lives of disabled people at some point, and last but not least, disabled people themselves. Raising awareness is the main focus this year, and many proposals aim at getting people to realize that people with disabilities are a natural part of the human complexity and diversity. Practice what you preach. We try to do that. And in all our work on the National Implementation Plan, we have engaged in co-creation from the beginning. We, the government, the municipalities, and the NGOs are in this together. It has meant that people from different backgrounds have had the opportunity to see things through other people's eyes, and an understanding has been created that would not have happened otherwise. Education and training. And you can see the picture, it's the same image with different kinds of colors, and we are getting to today, bit by bit. Many proposals are related to education and training, actions like employment training programs, flexible jobs, education and training in accordance with the Convention for Professions, such as medical doctors, lawyers, police, teachers, architects, engineers, and so on. Many proposals deal with accessibility and universal design. Here we are not only talking about access to houses, but also education, human-made environment, employment, governance, digital technology, decision-making, and so on. Accessibility is the key to society, and it is essential that we find ways to break down the walls and not building new ones that prevent full access for people with disabilities. Data and monitoring. Most of the working groups call for better data, more research, and better monitoring in all areas. We are good at decision-making, we are not good at executing it, and we are worse at monitoring it. Sorry. Finally, there is an emphasis on protection of rights and the importance of having a strong human rights body that people with disabilities can turn to for any rights or personal issues. A few weeks ago, Guðmundur Ingi, who is one of the persons on that slide, our minister started a series of meetings across Iceland to present the proposals of the National Implementation Plan and call for conversation and fresh ideas. With him are the NGOs. I trust that our parliament will be in consensus when it comes to vote on the plan in December of this year. It's going to be one more step in the right direction, one step nearer to the aim of getting people to realize that people with disabilities are a natural part of human complexity and diversity. We have become well-trained in putting on the gender glasses, the sustainability glasses, and the human rights glasses. But now it's time for us to see the world through the disability glasses and see the world in all its colors. I'm proud to be a part of this journey where we work together towards a society where no one will be left behind, and we all get the chance to contribute and flourish. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gudrun, Augusta, and Thor, for this rich presentation on another promising example of how of your inclusive process that led there, or is leading to the new national implementation plan. It's a really interesting pathway characterized by co-creation and inclusion, and it's really inspiring. Oops, my pen broke. Thank you. So we are moving further in the program. We're actually quite well in time. It feels really good. I think it's the only side event I've been to this during the COSP so far. That is, but it's well, shouldn't jump. How do you say? We have this saying that you shouldn't say hi before you're over the water or something like that. But we'll see. So next speaker is Þórður Reynisson from Nordic Innovation, one of the Nordic institutions and he will talk about health demography and quality of life, possibilities and barriers. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Minister, distinguished guests here and also online. I'm delighted to have this opportunity to present to you what we in the Nordic countries, through our joint Nordic cooperation, are doing to improve quality of life for all our citizens. My name is Þórður Reynisson and I work for Nordic Innovation. We are an organization under the Nordic Council of Ministers, so we are part of the Nordic family, as we like to say. And we are physically located in Oslo in Norway, but we serve the whole Nordic region. And our aim at Nordic Innovation is to make the Nordics a pioneering region for sustainable growth, work towards entrepreneurship, promoting entrepreneurship, innovation, and competitiveness in Nordic business. Just to give you a bit of an idea about the Nordic region. This is the Nordic region. It's 5 countries and 3 autonomous regions. The countries are quite small, each and everyone individually, stretching from Finland in the east to Greenland in the west. However, I like to view the Nordics as one region where we are more than 27 million. We are the 55th largest by population, and we are the 20th largest in terms of area. And maybe most notably, jointly we are the 10th largest economy in the world measured by GDP. So this gives us great leverage to achieve things that would be hard for us to do individually. But it's not only these figures, because at the core of our countries lies the Nordic welfare model. So we are all countries with market economy. We are all countries with universal health and welfare, where the key idea is that access to health care and social welfare should be available to everyone as a basic right. And also social equality. We believe that every individual shall have an equal chance to succeed. And I've been so fortunate to have been leading a program at Nordic Innovation called Health Demography and Quality of Life, a program that we started in 2018 and finished in 2022. And in the beginning of the program, we started out with a vision, saying that in 2030, which is just around the corner really, the Nordics will be the most sustainable and integrated health region in the world, providing best possible personalized health care for all its citizens. How can we achieve this? We believe that we have certain values in the Nordics that are sort of fundamental values. We have trust in the system. The people, they trust that if we are co-creating something based on data, the general public, they believe in the system, they believe in the governments. Equality are at the core at all the Nordic countries. Sustainability, innovation, all the Nordic countries constantly score high on all innovative measures, and openness. So we started off with doing some. So in this program, we started off with different activities. We executed hackathons where we combined registered health data, and registered health data is a real resource in the Nordic countries. We have world-class health data that we have gathered over a very long time. So combining those data with other data, the participants managed to create outstanding new solutions within the course of 48 hours. We have worked with city planners and municipalities in making Nordic cities more accessible and just better places to live in. And then we did an interoperability project where we followed a Swedish girl who has diabetes, studying and living in Copenhagen. But when she gets sick, she has to, the first thing she does is to buy a ticket back to Sweden because she can't take her medical records with her. So she can't get or the doctors in Denmark, they don't have her records, so they can't give her, or it would be harder for them to give her the treatment she needs based on her medical records. And the doctors in Sweden, they can't access her blood samples, for example, in Denmark. So, I mean, we needed this systematic change to be able to co-create and do something more based on our resource of data. So we started out with mapping what are the legal barriers for our vision to be materialized. And here we are basing on primary data, which is your data, your health data, and also secondary data, which is other data such as user-generated data from your mobile phone or smartwatches. This is the data where we see the most innovative or innovation potentials. And the conclusion was that there are great possibilities for co-creating and doing more than we are doing now across the Nordic borders. But we need more alignment, and this legal overview has been published online. So, I mean, the legal overview in the Nordic countries is quite good to do this. Then we said, okay, can we not just visualize it by making a use case, just demonstrating how and what will the effect be on citizens and on companies if we visualize it? So we took individuals and companies and just said, what effect will this vision have on you if it is materialized? And the conclusion was quite clear, that they said Vision 2030 enables a holistic, sustainable Nordic health care system. And some examples mentioned in the report are, for example, that if we manage to get this vision materialized, it will significantly improve personalized care potentials, because it will be much easier to tailor-make or tailor the measures we are doing. And same goes with treatment potentials. Preventive health is a vital issue here, because we believe that one good way of improving our life is that we can prevent you from becoming sick. Environmental impact were very positive. We know that the most sustainable hospitals are hospitals without patients. So there are great potentials there as well. Mental health was another issue that was mentioned, especially regarding preventive measures, that we can do a lot to improve mental health of our citizens if we manage to harness and utilize the possibilities in a good way that they are there. So we said, okay, how can we try to push this agenda more? So we did a business case, or Ernst & Young did a business case for us, where they said, okay, is it a good business to invest in this journey, to make this vision a reality? And from a business perspective, it's a no-brainer to do this, because there are such a considerable economic opportunities included in this. And it's efficiency of the system, it's efficiency of resources, but it's also that you will have much more people being able to live by their own, to participate much longer, and more people participating actively in working and at the labor market. So when you measure this, it's a really good business case. So we have done 10 recommendations for the Nordic governments on how we can best implement and make this vision a reality. And this has to happen quite fast if you want to have it in place by 2030. But if I'm not due to time, I'm not going to go through those steps, but these are the steps that we need to take, and we need to do it now. So I like to see this as a no, it's okay. I can. So I mean, if we want to sustain our welfare model as it is now, and provide best care and quality of life for all our citizens, we need to move from X to Y. And we have demonstrated how the Nordic countries can together achieve this, and how we can set example for other nations to follow. We can be the trendsetters. But this does not mean that the road is without barriers. There are barriers on the way, but we are quite positive that if we work together, that we can overcome them. So just to conclude, that our conclusion is that cross-Nordic co-creation potentials are not yet maximized. And sharing of data and better use of data is a key factor if we want to sustain our welfare system, and a factor for the change we need going forward. Better use of health and welfare data will increase quality of care, will increase quality of treatment, will increase quality of preventive measures, will increase innovation and the creation of new solutions. So all in all, better use of health data can increase quality of life for us, the Nordic citizens. So now I've talked for 12 and a half minutes out of the 13. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Thordur Reynisson from Nordic Innovation. And it's always inspiring to hear that participation to a higher extent and the quality of life of all people is also a good business case. That's great. We can bring that with us also from this meeting. And it's also a really nice example of co-creation and how to involve the different stakeholders in the process in order to have the effect we want. So thank you for that. We have heard about both opportunities and challenges, that they are many, and that we need to address them. The next topic is Digital Future, New Challenges and Solutions for Persons with Disabilities. And I give the floor to you, Garðar Kristinsson Lasius. I'm sorry for the pronunciation, probably not correct, but representing the Office for Protection on the Rights of Disabled People in Iceland. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Maria. Good afternoon. Like Maria said, my name is Garðar Kristinsson Thorlacius, and I work at the Office for Protection of the Rights of Disabled People in Iceland with the Ministry of Social and Labour Affairs. I'm briefly going to review a project regarding the use of electronic identification for disabled people that was launched with the signing of a letter of intent by 4 ministers of the Icelandic government on March 28th of this year. But if we start with what is electronic identification? An electronic identification, or an EID, is a digital solution for proof of identity of citizens or organizations. They can be used to view or access benefits or services provided by the government authorities, banks, or other companies for mobile payment. And for example, apart from online authentication and login, many electronic identity services also give users the option to sign electronic documents with a digital signature. The project's aim is the development of solutions for electronic access for disabled people. But in Iceland, according to numbers from the Icelandic Statistics Authority, just about 95% of the registered population in Iceland now have access and use of an EID. And it is now possible to use electronic identities and other trust services in connection with almost all service providers, for example, government authorities, municipalities, banks, and other private corporations. This is a positive development that greatly simplifies the lives of most people, saves time and funds. But the high spread of EID use makes those without EID even more apparent. Under that 5% of the population are people who do not want to use EID, or those who cannot for some reason get issued an EID. A large group of disabled people have not been able to take advantage of this development because access to almost all electronic services and data requires individuals to identify themselves with an electronic ID, while other means previously available to people with disabilities have been taken out of service either because of security, legal, or financial reasons. This amplifies the challenges of some people with disabilities are encountering in day-to-day life because of how quickly information technology regarding authentication services is being implemented for vast majority of people, but not all of them. It is necessary to take appropriate measures in order to enable disabled people to live an independent life and participate fully in all areas of life by removing these barriers that restrict access to information and communication services, including financial, health, and emergency services, and take appropriate measures to ensure that private actors that offer services that are open and provided to the public in general take into account the important need for accessibility for people with disabilities from all walks of life. In order to promote that disabled people receive other types of appropriate assistance and services that guarantee them access to information, in order to facilitate disabled people's access to new information and communication technologies and related systems. Before we continue, I want to introduce you to the main security framework that we need to work alongside in this project, since it regulates the issuance of an EID, but that is the EIDAS regulation. EIDAS, or Electronic Identification, Authentication and Trust Services, is an EU regulation on electronic identification and trust services for electronic transactions in the European single market. EIDAS oversees electronic identifications and trust services for electronic transactions in the European internal market and regulates electronic signatures, electronic transactions, and their embedding processes to provide a safe way for users to conduct business online, like electronic fund transfers or transactions with public services. Both the signatory and the recipient can have more convenience and security instead of relying on traditional methods, such as mail or appearing in person to submit a paper-based document. They may now perform transactions across border with one-click technology. But EIDAS has created the standard for which electronic signatures, qualified digital certificate, electronic seals and timestamps and other proof for authentication mechanisms enable electronic transactions with the same legal standing as transactions that were before performed on paper. Implementation of the issuance of an electronic identification, according to EIDAS and now in practice in Iceland, is such that the applicant must choose a PIN number that is used, for example, when validating electronic signature. Many individuals due to disabilities are unable to select or use such a PIN number without outside assistance. but aiding someone in selecting and or using that PIN number would violate a philosophy at EIDAS called sole control. The requirement of sole control is found in Article 26 of the EIDAS regulation. Digital signatures are based on public or private keys that are only secured as the signer's private key. Sole control is the principle that assures the signer and no one else but the signer has access to his or her signal signing key and can initiate the digital signature. A condition of the provision on fully valid electronic identification therefore excludes the entire group that cannot be assigned an electronic ID due to their, for example, disabilities, as the requirement for an electronic identity includes, as stated in the EIDAS regulation, that a fully valid electronic signature is made with electronic signature data that the signer can, with a high reliability, have sole control over. But appropriate arrangements and procedures used to ensure that the signatory has sole control over the use of their electronic data is paramount for its success and issuance. But the EIDAS regulation also interacts directly into the UN Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. The EIDAS regulation also stipulates in Article 15 that trust services provided and end-user products used in providing those services shall be accessible to people with disabilities as far as practicable. And that is in line with the obligations under the United Nations Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, in particular Article 9 of the Convention. Persons with disabilities should be able to use trust services and end-user products used in provision of those services on an equal basis with other consumers. Therefore, where feasible, trust services provided and end-user product used into the provision of those services should be made accessible for persons with disabilities, but the feasibility assessment should include, inter alia, technical and economic considerations. Under Icelandic law, special personal advocates for people with disabilities can assist a person to protect their right, assist with personal matters, and with the limits is able to assist with day-to-day financial matters. Personal advocates are primarily thought of as assistance from someone who knows the disabled person with their interests and needs. They are intended to help the person live an independent life and make informed decisions about their personal affair. This is in accordance with Article 12 of the Convention, but it should always be kept in mind that this person who gets another person's mandate to help them in individual cases. A personal advocate is not a legal guardian or a trustee of the disabled person, and is not authorized to make decisions without consultation with him or act on his behalf. The assistance must always be provided on the basis of the disabled person and with the interests as a guide. Emphasis is also placed on the fact that the work of a personal advocate is always voluntary. There should be no financial reason. The project is a part of the implementation and legalization of the Convention in Iceland. It is intended as a continuation development of a database for personal advocates of disabled persons, as the Minister mentioned in the beginning, but which can already provide the personal advocate the possibility of being granted access to the digital mailbox, for example, with communication from the government and access to paychecks. There's a personal advocate there. A personal advocate logs into his own mailbox with his own EID, and when logged in, he can then proceed to activate his client's view on the site and then access his client's data. The key here in this process is the traceability of action in the mailbox is absolute. But in order to develop the concept of personal advocates further, there is a need for personal advocates to be empowered by their clients to be able to access both health and banking data and services. This requires both legal and technical work, which doesn't always work well together. The nature of personal health and finance information is such that is being attempted to be accessed is such that the access usually requires an EID with high level of assurance according to EIDAS. And therefore, such an advocate route, as discussed here, is the clearest solution we have in hand today. However, the work is not without its problems. Legal changes are needed in order for personal advocates to have authorization to access such sensitive information. But this, in turn, raises the questions regarding the personal data protection and security, for example, to consider the traceability of actions of personal advocates in the systems, as I mentioned before, in order to detect possible misuse of the data, as well as the fact that the connection to external software to these secure systems that house the health and banking data can be complex in implementation, as it is necessary to consider the appropriate certification process for the entity that issues external authentication into the systems, which would mainly be government institutions at this point. The main problem for this kind of project is often simple ownership and credit, and that's why collaboration is paramount. We are trying to bring all relevant resources to the table, and therefore the joint statement of intent by the 4 ministers in the government who are involved in this matter is very important. Cooperation between the ministries and the involvement of everyone that is necessary to have a chance to solve this project well and safely is the basis for our success. There is also the possibility that this solution we managed to come up with will benefit other nations directly or indirectly. So it will be an ideal opportunity to establish further international cooperation as time goes on regarding this fundamental and necessary issue. But cooperation between Nordic and Baltic regions is already started. It is necessary to both continue to develop and ensure services for disabled people with resources such as personal advocates who can assist their clients with access to service and data. But it's also necessary to look at those who for some reason cannot or do not want to have personal advocates to handle their day-to-day affairs. This could be done by considering other solutions than using the highest level of security of EID for every online action as it is done today. For context, there is no need for an international passport to check out a book at the library. But I thank you for listening, and feel free to contact me on the email given on the last slide, and I hope you have enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Tack fyrir. Thank you, Gardar, for that presentation and for another interesting presentation on how these new solutions or the solutions that are being created are both or could both be in line with the UN Convention on persons with disabilities and also well, in parallel, of course, close the digital gaps that we see today that are so clear. And during this session, we have heard several examples of how the digital solutions that will be used in the future is or should be developed through co-creation, and a lot about why they should. Now we will move on to the next part of this side event, and we will hear from our presence and our future, who are the youth advocates in the room. And we have 4 persons representing young people with disabilities in Iceland, in Norway, and in Sweden. And it's my pleasure to introduce these representatives. I will introduce you with your names and organizations, so you don't have to do that yourselves, and you can just come to the points that I know that you are eager to share. We have Eidur Velding from the Icelandic Disability Alliance. We have Johanna Forsberg, who represents Youth with Disabilities Federation in Sweden. We have Siri Espe, who represents the Norwegian Association of Youth with Disabilities, and Sunna Dögg Augustdottir, who represents Iceland's National Association for People with Intellectual Disabilities. So welcome to the 4 of you. And I would like to ask, we have with time still, so the things that you have prepared, you will be able to say with margins. So if I ask you what in everything you've heard today could be the most useful in order to develop the services and the digital solutions that actually meet the needs of everyone with a disability, could I start with you, Siri, maybe?
Thank you. I think that a lot of the things that have been said here today is very interesting and is necessary to ensure digital accessibility for everyone. I think I found it, what Gudrun said about raising awareness about disabled people very interesting. And I think that awareness should also include increasing knowledge about universal design by those who create digital solutions. When, like Gudrun said, when you see the world through disability glasses, the people who design digital solutions, if they use the disability glasses, they will also design more accessible solutions, and that would probably lead to better solutions for everyone, both disabled and non-disabled people. And I also find what Thordur said about health data, and that it is important to figure out how health data can be sent in between systems, both national and in between the Nordic countries, because in a lot of the Nordic countries, we live quite far away from hospitals or the doctors. So digital appointments might be a positive way to both save energy and time to travel. That would probably increase everyone's flexibility if we get a good digital solutions in health. However, I would like to say that digital solutions or digital appointments should never replace in-person appointments if that is what you need and if that is what you want. So it's a good opportunity, but it shouldn't be just only that choice. Yeah, I think that was my thoughts about what's been said here today. Thank you.
So much. Thank you. What about you, Johanna?
Thank you, Maria. Most of what has been presented can and will be useful going forward, but I would like to highlight some things. As we heard, new digital solutions can lead to more inclusion, and it can also lead to more freedom of movement, especially with being able to study abroad and study within the Nordic countries as a person with disabilities or chronic diseases. Furthermore, with the digital solution, as we heard, within the healthcare system and other parts of the civic functions, it can improve health for us, and as well as health equity and inclusion. But we need to make sure that the process of accessing these services need to be accessible. And that includes the electronic ID that we talked about. It needs to be accessible for everybody, so everybody, no matter your ability, can access these healthcare functions and civic functions. We can't risk having groups of people standing outside of society and the healthcare system due to inaccessible solutions. I also would like to emphasize that we need to use an intersectional approach when it comes to the services designed. And as I don't remember who said it, but including people with disability at early stages of development. And I would like to emphasize that especially youth with disabilities include the young people with disabilities. And I would also, like Siri said, highlight the importance of the need for data. We, as civil society and disability organization, can't influence decision makers without any data. We need data to support the problems that we are describing and the solutions that we are suggesting to make the decision makers actually work in the way that we want them to. I would also like to say something that I actually didn't think anybody said, but there's a need for standards when it comes to digital solution. It needs to be easy for us as users to switch between different hardwares and programs. And today it is not. So yeah, I will end there.
Thank you so much for that. Yes, the trade-off between standards and innovation is a tricky one, but it's necessary in order to get it right everywhere. What about you, Eidur? How do you see the future solutions and how do we get there?
Yeah. Okay. So the thing is, I completely agree with the point that we really need to make health records more accessible through especially the Nordic region. Today we are in great cooperation in regarding social insurance, like old age pension and disability pensions throughout all Europe. So I think I see no obstruction in sending data throughout Europe with health records to make to make these services available to all, regardless in what European state you are in. That's like. I would just like to emphasize that the disability classes are free of charge, so it's really important. It's really easy for you to acquire those classes, and I encourage everyone to check it out, and so you can see this awesome vision. I imagine most disabled people have of this perfect world. And I think that's it.
Thank you so much. Sunna, what are your thoughts about this subject? How do you see the future solutions? What would be good, in your opinion?
In my humble opinion, I think it's pretty disgusting that we could have this right now, because technology is not inherently problematic or alienating. I think that it's not a good conversation to be saying, I wish it could be like that in the future, because it could be like that right now, because technology is not inherently alienating. And I think technology was created with not the right people in mind, that a lot of people don't even think that disabled people exist sometimes. So I just wish for the future, I think the only thing we can do is to educate our technology makers and all the industry professionals about disability and let them see the world through our eyes, because it doesn't have to be this way. It could in the present, it could so easily be better, but it's just people don't think about us. And I think that's a big issue. I think the only thing we can do, as I said, is to just educate the public about this, and so everyone who makes technology or everyone who just lives in our society knows about disability and knows how to treat people with respect and dignity and respect their human rights.
Thank you very much, Sunna. We hear the impatience in your voice, and it's really strong. And I think everybody agrees. And here we are, and we can just state facts that the equality gaps are evident, and it's really frustrating. And as the minister said in his opening remarks, that shouting is tiring, and a lot of people are tired, and we just have to keep on struggling for that. I wonder if there's anything else you would like to add that you are thinking about. Then the floor between you youth representatives is open. You can just ask for the word and I will distribute it. Sunna first.
I will not take too much time away from you other youth representatives, because obviously we all need to speak, so I will try to be quick. I just think it's not talked about enough about youth and disability together, and intersectionality, and being queer, and being like a person of color, and being disabled at the same time, the intersectionality of oppression. As a queer woman, a disabled woman myself, I can say that being disabled is hard, being queer is hard, but being both is terrible in this world. So I just hope that in the future intersectionality is considered more, and we as disabled people can also think like, I am disabled and that's hard, I am queer and that's hard, but also think other people who are the same as me can still face different challenges from me. And I think it's also just very important to think about how birds of a feather flock together, as Anna Laura, my friend here, would say. And by that she means that we need to get outside of our own group, outside of our own activism, and not always be speaking up to other disability activists, because they know everything about this, and they know like what we are talking about. But we need to get outside of our own group and speak to people who know nothing about disability.
Thank you so much. Johanna and then Siri.
Yes, I would like to add that youth with disabilities are more likely to be subjected to physical, mental, and sexual abuse, as well as mistreatment and discrimination. And we need to make sure that we have accessible, confidential, child-friendly, and independent complaint mechanisms and hotlines that are accessible to report violence and other mistreatment and discriminations. And it needs to be in a place where youth spend their time, and where youth with disabilities also can access them, and that is often online. And we need to be able to access them without electronic IDs. And I also cannot speak about digital solutions without forgetting the economical factors. So, as most of you in this room probably are aware of, we're overrepresented when it comes to low socioeconomical statuses and poverty. And at the same time, we might be dependent on having digital solutions to function and be able to work, to be able to study or take care in society. But we do not have the economy to obtain the hardware in order to use and access these digital solutions. And I will end with that and leave the word to you, Siri.
Thank you. I strongly agree with what both Johanna and Sanna is saying, especially that we have the technology to meet everyone's needs, as Sanna said, and we need to educate the creators, the people who design the different solutions. And we do often see that when you're developing a new platform or a new digital solutions, you think of universal design like almost when the product is finished, and that's not enough. We have to think of it when we start the process, and because the way we do it now, it results in really poor solutions, and they cannot be, the solutions we have, they cannot be used by all people or the people who need, for example, screen readers or different aids to use the solutions. So that is really, really necessary in all the solutions we are making. And I would like to say also that all the digital platforms that we use from early childhood throughout education must be universally designed and accessible to everyone. And in Norway, and I think in many other countries as well, the use of digital learning materials has increased during the last decade. And a lot of them are not universally designed, and that results in young youths and young adults who cannot access the learning materials they need to complete their education and to get a job. And earlier today, I attended another side event, and then there someone said that we need to ensure that everyone have the digital skills they need to attend university or to get a job. And by ensuring that, we have to design the solutions so that you can achieve the skills you need. And you achieve, like, kids achieve their digital skills in school today, and everyone has to have the same opportunity to get the skills that society has set a standard for. So, yeah, that is my add-ons to what have been said today. Thank you.
We really need to do better in offering young disabled people better opportunities to seek education, employment, and take part in society. More supporting measures must be in place to support disabled young people in taking advantage of those opportunities, alongside with, of course, sufficient funding and faculty. If I might add a personal point of view on when it comes to our junior colleges in Iceland. We tend to look at we tend to make it make a requirement that you know all subject matters like math and Latin and Greek, or some like crazy subjects, and without looking at the personal the personal power of the individual. I might be good at social sciences or some languages, but I might not be good at math. But I cannot acquire a matriculation exam without being really good at math, regardless of if I want to seek a career in, for example, social work. And without this matriculation exam, you can't get into universities. And that's the problem that disabled people are facing, because those who attend special like subject lanes with special support to disabled people, they don't acquire that matriculation exam. So they can't get into all subjects in the university. We have like one subject that disabled people like qualify for, but only a limited number of people can get into that education line in each year. So we really need to revise that alongside with the changes that the minister has introduced in the disability pension scheme, which I think is just great. I just wanted to make that point. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for making that point. And for all the other points that you've made. Thank you for raising your voices and for demanding to be included in all matters that concern you. And I hope that you will find the energy and stay, in the game for a better world in which we are in together. So I will try to wrap up here. The overarching theme of this Conference of State Parties to the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities this year is about how strategies for implementing disability policy are in line with the Convention. One of the sub-themes is about digital inclusion, and another sub-theme is about reaching underrepresented groups. And in this side event, I think all of these three thematic areas have been connected, and they have to be, because it's all interconnected. And we have heard some really good examples of how to manage all of these complex needs. And the only way forward is towards the future, and we are on that train together. In order for services to be inclusive and accessible, they need to be developed and provided in co-creation between those who work and those who are supposed to be using the products. I would like to thank Minister and Iceland, and representing also the Nordic Council of Ministers for raising this topic in this context. And I know that we will be continuing to work together through the UN system and the Nordic cooperation as well. Thank you, State Secretary, and all other participants for contributing to this event. And well, we are 1 minute over time, so thank you for everyone who has been here listening, and see you later. And bye to everybody who's listening. Thank you so much.